What's the most inappropriate thing a therapist has ever said to you?
So it's not so much of a what he said versus a what he did situation. So I'm there in the first place for sexual abuse counseling. Anyways, homeboy tells me to close my eyes and tell him what color I see. So obviously I fucking see black. It's the back of my eyelids, you nincompoop. Anyways, in the process of him asking me this question, he's rubbing my thigh. What color do you see? Bitch, I don't know what color I see, but I can smell a lawsuit. Sir, I can smell a lawsuit. What the fuck? Bitch, if you think a genie's about to come out of me and grant you 3 wishes, you're wrong. The court system gonna go ahead and grant you 3 years. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. So anyway, yeah, that's mine. Super cool.
What's the most insane actual rich person behavior that you've experienced?
One time I legitimately watched Jake Paul buy 3 Lamborghinis and hired 2 drivers for 2 of them so that he could drive in one on the road, and at any time no paparazzi or person following him would know it was him in his car because he would have 2 other identical cars with drivers around him at the same time. And back in the day, anytime I wanted to leave his house but I had to be back there later for something, he would legitimately make me leave in like an Audemars Piguet watch so that I would have a $100,000 watch on my wrist that I would have to return and come back with. I've seen him order DaBaby 1942, an IV, a massage, and Riley Reid all to the same jet. One time I wanted to start a secret company with him and I told him that I would only do it if he bought me an Escalade as the company car, and he bought an Escalade the same day. One time he was shooting a music video and only wanted a specific type of Maybach, and the only person in the world that had it was Drake, and they told him he couldn't have it, so he called Drake and Drake's team and paid to have the car the next day. Wedding ring was $300,000 and I lost it, but I guess that'd be my own insane behavior. Okay.
What's the weirdest thing your family did until you grew up and realized?
My parents taxed my chore money at 25%. So like when I was 10, I had to do 10 points worth of chores every week, and I'd get $10, and then $250 of that would go to family taxes, and then I'd have to put $250 in a savings account, and then I would get to keep the other 50% for spending. And once family taxes built up enough, we'd sit down and have a family meeting and vote on how we were going to spend it. So like one time we bought a new microwave because my mom said it worked just fine, but the other 3 of us were like, no, this thing is slow and old. And so we overruled her on that one. And honestly, as an adult, so glad they did that, because when I got a real job and all those taxes were taken out, I was like, psh, what else is new?
How old was your baby when you paid off your hospital bill?
So I'm a mom to triplets. There's a picture of them in the United States. They were born at 31 weeks premature. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital before they were born. And they had twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, where baby B was not getting enough nutrients because baby A and baby C were taking them all. They were born at 1.9, 3.3, and 3.4 ounces. Respectively. They spent 62, 68, and 82 days in the NICU respectively. And when they came home, my final bill was $1.23 million each for them, not including my own. So after insurance, I ended up owing about $65,000. I cashed out my 401k so that I could pay for that. So I am now a widow because my husband was killed, and I will never, ever, ever be able to retire in my life.
She said it's for all the right reasons.
One day I was really bored, so I decided to re-download Tinder for the 9th time that month. He swipes in and I see this gorgeous man. He looks like Nate Archibald. You heard me right. Nate freaking Archibald. I swipe right. What happens? It's a match. I shoot my shot. I say, I think you dropped something. My jaw. He says, Marichelle, you, me, and a bottle of bubbly. I say, let me know when and where, and I'll be there. He says, tonight, if you're down to drive to the city. I say, bet. What's the address? He sends me his address and his phone number, and I make my merry way over to New York City. I get there at midnight. I see this beautiful man dressed so nicely with beautiful hair and beautiful eyebrows and beautiful eyes, beautiful everything. He was literally Nate Archibald. And then we go into the elevator, and then he clicks the 37th floor. Keep in mind, this is in the Upper East Side, just like Nate Archibald would. And when we walk inside the apartment, it's literally
Shot like a player. I'm not your bestie, not your sis. I'm not the one I am.
I turned on my light in the middle of the night just to film this. This girl, a few years before I was in high school, I think she was a sophomore, I'm not sure. She had this boyfriend that her mom didn't approve of. So her boyfriend and a friend of theirs kidnapped her mom and took her out into a cornfield and murdered her.
How old was your baby when you paid off your hospital bill?
0 minutes old. Here in Canada, they don't charge you to have kids. In fact, after you've had the baby, the government pays you for 18 years to help with the cost of raising the children. So,
What's the most insane actual rich person behavior?
My house was so big, I had to tell my dad dinner was ready by using the phone intercom system. And all of those dinners were 3-course meals prepared by a private chef. We had at least like 7 employees in the house at all times, including security guards, and my mom always was terrified that there would be an inside job and I would be kidnapped. When my parents got divorced, I had to live in 4 houses at the same time, and somehow I would get in trouble because I couldn't keep track of all my underwear.
One time we took a 30-minute commercial flight from Boston to Nantucket, and my dad hated the commercial flying experience so much, despite the fact that state police officers helped us through it. He had the private plane meet us in Nantucket to bring us back to Boston.
I never had to go to the grocery store as a kid. There would be a pad of paper in the kitchen, and if I wrote something down, it would disappear the next day. My parents' divorce made the news, calling my mom a gold digger, and the comments were full of men counting down the years until I turned 18. I wasn't allowed to put my last name on social media because people would track me down and kidnap me.
If you're still drinking Starbucks in 2020, grow the fuck up. You're not in middle school anymore.
Baby girl, if you broke, you can just say that.
Here's a question. If the pandemic miraculously ended right now, what would you do tonight?
Wow, the pandemic is over. Okay, back inside I go now.
What's the most insane actual rich person behavior that you've experienced?
My dad is one of the richest men in Nigeria, so growing up as a child, different world leaders used to have meetings with my dad in our house. One day I met Barack Obama in my living room and he asked me if I knew he was going to become the next president of the United States. I just laughed and ran back to my room. He was still a senator then. My house in Nigeria has a massive helipad and every member of the family has a private helicopter there. Every girl I dated in high school had to sign a prenup just in case we got married by accident. I have never been on public transport in my life and that's something I would want to do at least once in my life. One day my dad saw a homeless man with a lottery ticket and he paid him the maximum amount as if he had won the lottery. My dad said he was just trying to teach us kindness. My brother once dated Rihanna.
Did you know that bleach and rubbing alcohol create chloroform?
I did know that. Did you also know that potassium, regular drugstore potassium, when injected directly into the bloodstream, will cause cardiac arrest within minutes? It's actually what they use to execute prisoners who are executed by lethal injection. By the time police get around to doing a toxicology report, the potassium levels in the bloodstream will have lowered to a point that is naturally occurring in the body. The body naturally makes potassium, so it's not weird for it to be there. And if you inject it under the tongue, in that area, by the time they get around to doing a coroner's report, the skin will have atrophied and retracted enough that it will conceal the injection site. So unless they're specifically looking for a potassium overdose and an injection under the tongue, it'll just look like a heart attack. So sad. Happens every day. For legal purposes, this is a joke.
What's the most fucked up thing that your parents told you as a kid that really hurt your feelings and is still stuck with you today? Growing up, I was always on the kind of heavier side because my mom was a single mom and a nurse, so she was way too tired to cook, so we ate a lot of fast food. But when I was in 6th and 7th grade, so around 10 or 11 years old, my mom told me in the car, she turned to me and said, I'm glad you're fat because I don't have to worry about boys. She started naming all the girls in my class. All those girls, they're pretty and skinny. They're going to have to worry about boys now. But you won't. And from then on, anytime my mom posted anything of me on Facebook, any photos of me, somebody would comment, Tiffany's really beautiful, but she's fat.
And then she'd say the same thing. You know, I'm glad she's fat because it's less of a problem for me. That was over 10 years ago. I'm 23 years old now and I live by myself, and I still think no man will ever love me because of it.
Let me sit this ass. Hey, I know this might be really hard for you and many other people like yourself to understand, but no matter what a woman does with her body, she will never be an object. She will always be a human being. Objectification is treating someone like an object. Now, I might partake in this trend and show my immaculate arch, but that does not mean that I am now an object. I will always be a human being. I am just owning myself as a sexual being, which is perfectly fine. The same way it's perfectly fine for you not to want to participate in this challenge and not to want to own yourself as a sexual being. But what is not okay is for you to come on the internet and bash other women for partaking in this trend and doing what they want with their bodies. I don't know if you heard, but it's 2020 and we're doing girls supporting girls. So if it's not something you personally want to do for yourself, that's fine, but don't shame other people for doing it. Thank you. And while we edit, should I go ahead and body this trend real quick?